Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from 10th Canto, Chapter 14, Text 42. Tataha Anugyapya Bhagavan Swabhuvam Prak Avasthitan Vatsan Pulinam Aninye Yithapurva Sakham Swakam Tatonugapya Bhagavan Swabhuvam Pragavastithan Vatsan Pulinam Aninye Yithapurva Sakham Swakam Tatonugapya Bhagavan Swabhuvam Pragavastithan Vatsan Pulinamaninye Yitha Purva Sakham Swakam. Tataha, then, Anugyapya, giving permission, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, Swabhuvam, to his own son, Brahma, Prak, from before, Avastitan, situated, Vatsan, the calves, Pulinam, to the shore of the river, Aninye, he brought, Yithapurva, just as before, Sakham, where the friends were present, Swakam, his own. Translation and purport by disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After granting his son Brahma permission to leave, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the calves, who was still where they had been a year earlier, and brought them to the riverbank, where he had been taking his meal and where his cowherd boyfriends remained just as before. Purport. The word Swabhuvam, to his own son, indicates that Lord Krishna forgave the offense Brahma had committed and treated him with affection as his son. It is stated in this verse that the original cowherd boyfriends and calves were situated just as before, near the bank of the Yamuna River and in the forest, respectively. Previously, the calves had disappeared within the forest, and Lord Krishna had gone to search for them. Not finding them, the Lord had returned to the riverbank to discuss the situation with his cowherd boyfriends, but they had also disappeared. Now the cows were once again in the forest and boyfriends once again on the bank of the river to take their lunch. According to Srila Sanatana Goswami, the calves and boys remained in the forest and on the river bank, respectively, for 1 full year. Lord Brahma did not actually take them away to another place. By the Lord's omnipotent illusory energy, the gopis and other residents of Vrindavan did not notice the calves and boys, nor did the calves and boys notice the passing of a year's time or feel any hunger, cold, or thirst. All this was part of the pastime arranged by the Lord's illusory potency. Lord Brahma thought, I have kept all the boys and calves of Gokula sleeping on the bed of my mystic potency, and to this very day they have not risen. A similar number of boys and calves have been playing with Krishna for 1 whole year, yet they are different from the ones illusioned by my mystic potency. Who are they? Where did they come from? Nothing is invisible to the Supreme Lord. Thus Lord Krishna appeared to be searching for the calves and boys only to enact the dramatic pastime of bewildering Lord Brahma. After Brahma surrendered and offered prayers, Lord Krishna returned to the original boys and calves, who appeared exactly as before, although their size had somewhat increased because of 1 year's growth. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, since Lord Krishna was playing exactly like an innocent young cowherd boy in Vrindavan, after four-headed Brahma offered his prayers to the Lord maintained his role as a young cowherd boy and thus remained silent before Brahma. Krishna's silence indicates the following thoughts. Where did this four-headed Brahma come from? What is he doing? What are these words he keeps on speaking? I'm busy looking for my calves. I am just a cowherd boy and do not understand all this. Lord Brahma had considered Lord Krishna an ordinary cowherd boy and had treated him as such. After accepting Brahma's prayers, Krishna continued to play as a cowherd boy and thus did not answer the four-headed Brahma. Rather, Krishna was more interested in rejoining his cowherd boyfriends for the picnic lunch on the bank of the Yamuna River. Om Jnanitimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadah Mayam Dadati Swapitantikam Vande Ham Shri Guru Shriyata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavano Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaudangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhishya Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swaminita Namani Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminita Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhara Srivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So previously we were reading in the previous verse that Brahma had took permission to leave the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna gave him permission to leave. And in the purport, it was made clear that although Lord Brahma, he wanted to take shelter of Vrindavan and even be the dust of the grass outside of Vrindavan, it was made clear that he had devotional service he had to perform. So he had to go back to his respective abode. So in this current verse, it's making the acharyas are revealing that although we've been reading that Lord Brahma has kidnapped the cowherd boys and brought them to a secluded area, in actuality, Brahma was bewildered into thinking that he actually he kidnapped the cowherd boys, but this was not the actual case, as given by Srila Sanatana Goswami, that actually the calves and boys, they remained in the forest and on the riverbank respectively. So the calves, they were in the forest, and the cowherd boys, they were on the riverbank. And there's actually another example of this if we in Ramayana, if we remember that Ravana, he allegedly kidnapped Sita Devi, but actually he didn't kidnap Sita Devi, as revealed by the acharyas. He took an illusory form of her. So by this we can understand that although one may try to come in contact with the devotees or try to harm or understand the devotees or Krishna, in actuality, without being a bhakta, one can't come in contact with the devotee, Krishna as his devotees. In this regard, there's this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavritaha Mudho Yam Nabhijanati Lokomamajam Avyayam. That those who are rascals, mudhas, Krishna actually, he hides himself by his own internal potency to those who don't want to understand him through the authorized process of bhakti yoga. So in this way, so many people are trying to understand the Lord, but they're being bewildered at every step. We've been understanding through these previous verses this Achinta Shakti, that this inconceivable potency. So this pastime is so amazing because it's making clear the power of Krishna's illusory energy, and how, although Lord Brahma, he's completely made of intelligence, the most intelligent being in all of three worlds, even himself, he can't understand the Supreme Lord, and he can't, what to speak of his devotees, who are even more bewildering. He can't even understand the devotees of the Supreme Lord. And so this is an example for us and all the conditioned souls that one cannot understand through mundane sense perception the Supreme Lord. Well, the non-devotees are always trying to understand these activities of the Lord in so many different ways. The Gyanis, they're understanding the Supreme Lord to be impersonal. The yogis, they're thinking the Supreme Lord to be just some impersonal aspect or even Paramatma. And the materialists, they're understanding the material energy and trying to understand in so many different ways. But ultimately, they're all left bewildered. Because they don't want to take to the proper process of bhakti yoga. They simply want to understand through their own will, through their own power. But this is being made clear that they can't understand. And so there's this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Tribhir Gunamaya Bhava Evi Sarvamidam Jagat Mohitam Nabhijanati Mamavya Param Avyayam. That the entire universe, the entire Brahmanda is completely bewildered by this illusory energy, by the three modes of material nature. No one wants to understand the Supreme Lord in the proper way because they themselves don't want to come above the material energy. They want to lord it over material nature, and therefore they cannot understand that which is transcendental. By reading Srimad Bhagavatam and reading Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that which is matter and that which is spirit. And therefore, we can clearly distinct that which is mundane and not mundane, and understand who are the devotees and who are the Supreme Lord. And this is done by reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But without following this process given by the previous acharyas, it is completely impossible. And we can see that the non-devotees, they're seeing the devotees perform so many activities. Like we're going out and distributing books every day. And no one can even begin to grasp how this activity of book distribution is transcendental. So many people, they're looking at us as hustlers, as salesmen, as just fruitive workers. They're thinking maybe we're mundane welfare, doing some pious work, but none of them are understanding that this activity of book distribution in Harinam is completely transcendental. They don't understand because how we are completely glorifying the Lord through all these, that all these activities have the Lord in the center. Therefore, it's a completely transcendental activity. But no one wants to understand this. The Mayavadis, they're thinking that it's some sentimental thing. And therefore, they themselves are not able to understand the Supreme Lord. They are falling down continuously from impersonal Brahman to back into this material world. They don't understand. They take the holy names of the Lord as mundane. Therefore, they cannot understand that how this Harinam and this Sankirtan, this book distribution, is completely transcendental. And this is the problem of the living entity. We've been in this material world since time immemorial, and in trying to enjoy this material world. And because of this, we are continually enjoying and suffering the fruits of our activities. And we're taking on different bodies in the 8,400,000 different species of life. And we're trying to enjoy in various ways. in varieties. Just like we're seeing in this purport here. It's making clear that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he makes clear that um, just as Lord Brahma had taken the Supreme Lord as an ordinary cowherd boy, the Lord resumed his pastimes as an apparently ordinary cowherd boy, and therefore didn't respond to Lord Brahma, but only responded with silence. Because the Supreme Lord, he relishes, he performs these pastimes to relish the loving exchanges of his devotees. So in this way, he resumed this position as an ordinary cowherd boy. So we all have this relationship with the Supreme Lord in different ways. Parasya Shakti Vidhaiva Shuyate. That the Supreme Lord, he has various energies, various mellows, and he interacts with his devotees in various ways. But because of this desire, we've been covered over and forgotten this lost relationship we've had with the Supreme Lord, and therefore we're trying to enjoy in varieties of ways in the material world. But these varieties in the material world is a complete a perverted reflection. Therefore, we try to enjoy with our mother and our father, our children, our friends, our wives, husbands, even with our own pets. You know, some people in America, pets are very popular. Most people have dogs and cats. Here, it's not so popular. It's becoming more popular. So many Indians, they're getting dogs now, and even American dogs are getting like golden retrievers. I saw one day on Harinam, they had some American dog. But there's no one's people are trying to understand the Supreme Lord in ways, but they can't understand how these relationships that the Supreme Lord has various relationships, and they're all completely transcendental. That we're all meant to serve the Supreme Lord. This is the simple fact we must understand, is that we're trying to understand this material energy, the Lord or His energies in so many different ways, but we're left completely bewildered because we're not understanding the simple fact that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. He's a person, and we're meant to serve that personality, and according to our constitutional position, whether it be in so many conjugal loving, whether it be in a friendship, parental relationship, or am I missing one? Conjugal loving, parental relationship, friendship, or dasya relationship. So there's so many ways that we're meant to serve the Supreme Lord, but because of the desire to enjoy separately, it's been completely covered over. Therefore, we're left bewildered, not able to understand the Lord or His devotees, not understanding that the devotees themselves are transcendental and have a unique spiritual relationship with the Supreme Lord. Rather, the Mayavadis, they take inactivity to be transcendental or spiritual. The simple fact that one must seclude himself and perform no activity, separate himself from the sense objects. They take this to be spiritual. But so many things are inactive. The rocks themselves are inactive. This does not mean it's spiritual. What's spiritual is pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And until we come to the platform of this anyabhilashita shunyam, completely purifying ourselves of jnana, karma, of desire, fruitive activity, of the desire to be one with the Supreme Lord, until we purify ourselves of these different various contaminations, we can't come to this platform of understanding His pastimes. This sarva bhadi vinirmuktam tatparatvaina nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktaruchate. That we must perform this, we must engage our senses in the service of the Supreme Lord, Rishikesh, so that our senses may become purified. Currently, our senses are contaminated by material desires. Our desires are stolen by illusion. Therefore, we're not able to understand the Supreme Lord. But by performing this devotional service in various ways, according to the 9 devotional processes, and ultimately according to what's given by our acharyas, especially this Sankirtan Yajna, we cannot understand Supreme Lord. But by performing these processes, Tatpada Twaina Nirmalam. These different contaminations, these impurities will become purified, and we can eventually understand the transcendental activity of the Supreme Lord by the process of going through the acharyas, not by trying to understand by our own personal whims. Otherwise, we'll end up like Lord Brahma, or a lot worse. At least Lord Brahma, he's a devotee. But so many people, they're trying to understand this, or trying to become the Supreme Lord in so many envious ways, and are left in even worse positions, just far further entangled in this material energy. But by performing this devotional service, we can actually understand the Supreme Lord in the perfect way, that He is the Satchidananda Vigraha, that He's a person. He has various activities. He's supreme, and He's the supreme enjoyer, and He's meant to enjoy everything. And that is what Krishna is doing in this pastime. He's Lila Purushottam. He's enjoying this pastime. Otherwise, how can you understand? Although through this pastime, he's apparently kidnapping the devotees. Brahma's kidnapping the devotees, and he's thinking he's kidnapping, but actually he didn't kidnap. And the cowherd boys were there on the bank of the Yamuna, and the calves were in the forest actually. But he bewildered everyone in thinking that they were kidnapped, just so he could expand himself, expand his own glories, and expand the bliss of his devotees. The calves were experiencing higher bliss by accepting the Supreme Lord as their sons. Also, similarly, the Gopas and Gopis were accepting the Supreme Lord as their son, and this way they were increasing their bliss. They were able to relish this exchange of the Supreme Lord. One cannot understand this without this process, without the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of the acharyas, without submissively inquiring from the devotees. And without this mercy, then we'll be left as so many other religions, so many other so-called religions, these Kaitapa Dharma, cheating religions, so many materialist atheists will be left speculating for many births, performing fruitive activity with no ultimate conclusion. There'll be no conclusion. We'll simply be left bewildered, simply trying to enjoy, but suffering, just experiencing birth, death, old age, and disease. I was talking to my sister. She goes to a big school in Yale, and anyway, I'll wrap it up. But she's always talking about how people are promising so many things, cures to HIV and AIDS, and so many different solutions, but they cannot address this solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. This can only be done by pure devotional service, and this is what's made clear in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is what's made clear in this pastime Brahma, that simply we just surrender to the Supreme Lord, submit to Him and His devotees, and then we can obtain His mercy. I'll wrap it up because it's time. We have Sankirtan. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.